All right, everybody. What's going on? This is Sukaba, and today we're kicking off content week with a little bit of a draft review. We've got a new season of the VBL-S Season 12, and this one is very exciting because for the first time we're welcoming back a lot of old friends from the DLC. You know, we got some returning mons to the format, some new toys to play with, and, you know, in some cases we have some pre-existing mons we've been using that acquired a lot of new tools with this DLC that makes them even more powerful and threatening. So this was a really cool draft, and one of the reasons this draft was so amazing and awesome was that it was 32 coaches, one draft board. Now normally this is not something that is easily accomplished just because there's not enough mons to go around for everybody, but we're at the stage in the generation where we're starting to see a lot of Pokemon available in the pool, and at first, I was hesitant to this idea, but I'm really happy we did it because it was a blast. Really slow draft, took like a week and a half, but it was so fun the whole way, so engaging. Every pick I was looking, I was like, oh, like, is my thing still available? Like, it's so hard to plan. It was crazy chaos, and I loved it. And we're going to talk today about what we resulted with from this 32-man draft. And as you can see, I kind of have my star pupils of my team, a little sneak peek right here for you all. But the theme for this season is kind of like fire and ice. I got the Gouging Fire, I got the Glastrier, and the Grimmsnarl to tie it all together. We're going to go into why I think it's going to work, why I think it can be good. But before we do so, I would like to start just by briefly talking about a little overview of how this went down in the draft. So, as I said before, 32-team league. This changes your drafting strategy immensely. So, you know, the top tiers, you got to make sure you have one of those because they're going to go quick in a board like this. Everybody wants their hands at a unique Pokemon that can handle some unique business. Got to maybe a special move, a special niche, a special typing / ability combination. So you really want to make sure you get one of these top options. Now, in addition to this, we also shifted down a lot of the mid and low tiers that were on this board. So a lot of those mons that were in like the 12 to 17 range got shifted down a couple points. And this was especially true at the lower end as well, where mons in like the 6 to 8 tier are now like 4 or 5 points. So this creates a lot of value on your board. So what we're looking at here is a lot of teams that are wide this season because at the low end, you could still afford those top threats, but you can also round out your draft with usable Pokemon instead of grabbing a bunch of bag mons. So I think this was a positive change for the league, and we'll talk about some of the value that we found a little bit later. One other interesting thing was that we actually drafted our draft position. So we randomized the draft order, but then we used that draft order to pick your draft slot, which was kind of funny. Like, it was a little ridiculous, I thought at first, but it was actually a lot of fun. So I kind of hope we do it again. But we got the 7th pick in the draft. And with that 7th pick, we drafted the 5th pick in the real draft. Right? So I knew I wanted the highest pick possible just so I could get my hands on one of these top threats. So let's talk about what top threat we ended up with. It was a coveted Pokemon on the board, from what I gathered, Gouging Fire. Now, this was not originally my pick. I kind of thought when I got the pick, I was like, all right, I'm liking Whimsicott, right? I'm liking Ursaluna Blood Moon. These are some real strong contenders. I wasn't even really looking at Gouging Fire or Gouging Fire. I'm probably going to say it wrong like 5 times in this video. So just let me know in the comments if you think that I'm saying it wrong. Gouging Fire. Really powerful though. When I started looking into this thing, it got me so more and more excited. I just had to pick it. This thing has like the most amazing combination of stats, typing, and flexibility that just make it an incredible centerpiece to any team. And it really, you know, gave me a wide variety of directions to go in when the wheel would come back to me 60 picks later. So what makes this mon so powerful? First of all, Dragon Fire typing is really, really, really good because not only do you help out the water weakness with the Dragon typing, but the fire typing also removes the Fairy weakness. So it's kind of like a symbiosis in that way. You also get a couple really nice 4X resistances, like Steel, which is really nice to have as a switch-in, and Grass, etc., stuff like that. So in addition to all that, you know, the powerful typing, the stats on this thing are really, really cool because it has everything you want. It has good bulk, amazing bulk actually, 105, 121, 93. It's not like super slow. 91 is a reasonably fast speed tier that makes it very usable without other speed control options against a lot of Pokemon. And it also just has a really good attack stat. 115 is solid, right? And you have to remember, with Photosynthesis, you can boost this thing up even more. And that's one of the most amazing things about this Pokemon for me as a centerpiece, is that I'm going to be able to boost any of those 4 major stats any week, depending on what I need. If I want to go quick, get a fast Howl off as a supportive option, I could boost your speed, or maybe I just want to get really, really bulky. And I'm in a especially bulky or especially offensive matchup where the team has a lot of special attackers. I proto special defense. I'm a bulky support. I'm breaking, swiping. I'm howling. I'm clicking the funny, unique move, which we got to talk about, Burning Bulwark. So this is a King Shield variant that burns with 100% every single time it burns if a contact move is made on an attacking move on Gouging Fire. So this is going to be on the kit a lot, and it's really going to alter prep for the opponent, because if you want to take out Gouging Fire, you're going to have to figure out a way to do it without your contact moves, because you don't want to risk getting burned. Now, this does invite the potential for a lot of status moves to be targeted into Gouging Fire as a way to counter it, because Burning Bulwark does not protect against status moves. However, this can be remedied with a Lum Berry or a number of other options, and a benefit of fire typing is that you get that burn immunity as well, which it really, really appreciates. This thing is just awesome. I'm going to use it offensively. I'm going to use it supportively. It's going to really be a great option for my team. And don't forget about those setup threats, man. Dragon Dance. It's got Powerful Stab and Flare Blitz or Heat Crash. Can Terra Ground Earthquake. I'm going to have a lot of fun using this thing, right? So a long way went, right? A long time passes after my first pick. What is available on the way back down? I'm hoping to get a really good screen setter to accompany Gouging Fire. So I was looking at Grimmsnarl, I was looking at Alolan Ninetales, and I was looking at Klefki as a rejoining member of the Togekisses. But we ended up getting the Grimmsnarl, which I think was probably my most favorable option, although I was pretty close to picking the Ninetales as well. But Grimmsnarl provides a lot in a partnership with Gouging Fire. So not only does it have the Prankster screen option, which obviously a mon that's that bulky and that powerful would love to be even harder to kill through screens. But this mon is unique in the fact that you can also use it as an offensive threat with Gouging Fire providing the support. So this thing has 120 attack stat. It gets Frisk, it gets Fake Out, it gets powerful moves like Play Rough and Sucker Punch that can just really do a lot of damage if you're not ready for an offensive Grimmsnarl. So putting this thing next to Gouging Fire, I could boost up both Mon's attack with Howl. Could start, I could use a Fake Out to get that going. Could start Play Roughing opposing dragons, and that's another thing that's really nice about Grimmsnarl is that Spirit Break / Play Rough really allows me to punish opposing dragons that could be threatening to Gouging Fire. So that Fairy typing combo is also a nice addition. Now, this thing gets a lot. I have used Grimmsnarl before. It's a returning member of the Togekisses, and I'm looking to get more out of it this time because when I used it last, I kind of used it as a screen bot every single week. And while I think it would be perfectly fine in that role this season, I am looking to see if I can get some more offensive options in with other supportive options. So, love screen archetype. It's one that I'm very comfortable with, as I've said before. And after a couple seasons off from the screens, I'm looking to make a comeback with some of these new toys and see if we can find success with it once again, because I really do believe it's an incredibly powerful tool in VGC, and I want more people to realize that. So we'll see how Grimmsnarl works as a supportive and offensive partner to the Gouging Fire. Really excited to use that staple of a pairing. I'm sure they'll be in the lineup pretty much every week this season. All right, next up. So we picked a few picks later, maybe like 10, 11 picks later, and we ended up with Articuno-Galar. Now, this is an interesting Pokemon because it's one of the few Pokemon in the whole format that has access to Imprison, Trick Room, and Tailwind all in one. I think the only other Mon that has that is Drifloon, but Articuno-G provides a really, really good tool for my team in competitive. So 125 special attack stat with competitive is going to be a scary thing to think about if you're considering bringing Intimidate to the match. And Intimidate is pretty attractive so far. I've got the Gouging Fire and the Grimmsnarl, both physical attackers that don't like to be intimidated. So the Articuno-G provides not only speed control options for me, but also deterrent from that Intimidate that would be so threatening into those first two options. I think this Mon has been a little underwhelming in VGC since it's been legal in these formats, even in Draft League, but I think on this team it fits because it also had, not only is it have those support tools in the Imprison, the Tailwind, the Trick Room, but it also just has good stats. And good stat Pokemon are the best ones that you want next to screens, because you want to take advantage of your already decent bulk and make it great bulk by making it hard to kill you through a light screen or a reflect. You also want your screen abusers to have high attack stats. So this 125 special attack gets the unique move Freezing Glare, and also, you know, more flying type moves and Air Slash. Coverage is really limited, but most of the time all it needs is really that psychic and flying typing. And, you know, you could even set up with this thing. You could Calm Mind behind a Reflect, become +1 basically in 3 stats, and then just start dishing out powerful attacks. So it's a flexible mon for me on this team that provides a supportive niche in giving me a Tailwind and Trick Room setter in one, which will be useful later on as well. So I'm excited to use it. I think we haven't seen the best of this mon, and that, you know, maybe I can get the most out of it this season. We'll see. Next up, round 4 comes around, and we're adding to the squad here with another returning member of the Togekisses, Gengar. So I had Gengar my very first season of the VBL-S, before I knew what I was doing in a draft league, and this is just an all-time favorite for me. It's a fan favorite. I love Gengar. I always used to use it as a kid. Made sure it was on all my teams that I would challenge the Elite Four in. It's just so good. So provides a really nice speed tier for me, because so far my mons are pretty middling speed. I've got the 85 on the 95 on the Articuno, the 91 on the Gouging Fire. Not bad, but I wanted something a little extra in the speed tier department, and Gengar certainly provides that with a 110 stat. Now, Gengar has a lot on its plate here. For 12 points, the utility you get is very good. First of all, 130 special attack stat definitely means this thing is a powerful threat you cannot ignore, and you cannot underestimate what it can do to you with a Sludge Bomb or Stab Shadow Ball. So that is one option I can use Gengar for, as like an offensive thing. And this is good because so far Fairy types also look pretty good into my team. The Gouging Fire and the Grimmsnarl both have a little trouble hitting fairies and don't love taking hits from the fairies, even though the Gouging Fire does have a neutral hit on it, but still doesn't really have a great way to hit it. You know, provides an immunity to those dragon attacks. So the Gengar does give me a nice stab poison option that could punish any fairies that I might see. But also, I just think it's really good to have a ghost type on your VGC team, especially one that has the tools that Gengar has. So this is why I've loved using mons like Chandelure in the past, because having a powerful ghost type makes the game simpler. You don't have to worry about being faked out, and having that natural fake out immunity is so huge on those turn ones. So Gengar becomes a really attractive lead on this team, not only for its fake out immunity, but also for the fact that it can provide fast Icy Wind. It can provide Taunt. It could Acid Spray next to another special attacker. It can Trick Room. It can Imprison a Trick Room, right? In addition to just throwing out powerful attacks. So Gengar is going to be really, really good for this team, I think. And like I said, having that ghost option available without having to commit a Terra to get a ghost type is really, really cool. Because like if you lead a ghost type next to another mon and they lead a fake out mon, it simplifies everything, because all you have to worry about is what if he fakes out this partner Pokemon, right? And if you can play around that, you could protect. Maybe you have a Covert Cloak on that mon for that reason, or maybe you discourage them from clicking fake out at all. It definitely alters the game, and it makes it a little bit easier to play, in my opinion. So I love having a ghost. Welcome back, Gengar. You're going to do some cool things for me. I know you are, buddy. All right. Next up, new Eviolite abuser just dropped in. Welcome to the team, Duraludon. So Duraludon's another favorite of mine, just because back in Gen 8, when I started getting into competitive Pokemon again, in that Dynamax format, this is one of the first mons that I used. I was using the Whimsicott Duraludon Dynamax combination with the Steel Spike and the Max Wormwind. Oh, it's so good, the Duraludon. It's so bulky, especially with that Dynamax. Now, it returns in Gen 9 without Dynamax, but with a new toy to play with, in the fact that you can boost its defenses with Eviolite. Now, one of the downsides to Duraludon, so historically, have been its very bad special defense stat. Now, normally you'd run an Assault Vest to accompany that, but that's a little limiting in the fact that you can only run, you know, attacking moves, and that, you know, you have to use the item slot on the Assault Vest. With Eviolite now, not only are you boosting that special defense by 1.5, but you're also boosting your defense. So this really changes the dynamic and makes it an even more bulky and more threatening, Pokemon in that sense. Now, looking at the coverage on here, I was actually a little surprised at how little this thing gets. Like, it's really just like Dragon Steel stabs, and then all you have available is like Thunderbolt and Dark Pulse. That's like basically the only coverage. But I don't think it necessarily needs that coverage. Like, I think this is kind of like a niche thing you bring as a really bulky mon that isn't passive. And that's a really important thing for bulky Pokemon in VGC, is you want to make sure that they do something, right? So having 120 special attack stat with Dragon and Steel stabs, I think is good enough to just sit there and do something, right? So this thing could be a great partner to a Fake Tears Grimmsnarl, right? Fake Tears a target, hit it with a powerful Flash Cannon or Draco Meteor, and all of a sudden it's dead, right? And you also live the hit because maybe you have an Eviolite and I'm against a physical lineup. This thing is really physical bulky with the Eviolite as well. Speaking of that defense stat, also just a really cool Iron Defense body press option. So if I find a matchup with a lot of physical attackers, I could bring this thing out, with a fake out lead, set up an Iron Defense, and then just start body pressing behind screens, and then it's just not going to die, right? So it really provides a lot of options. Stalwart also is pretty cool in doubles. There's a lot of redirectors in this format. The Ogre Pawns are there with Follow Me. You've got some new threats with Rage Powder and Follow Me coming back. So having that option to avoid redirection can be really good in team building. Additionally, maybe even a little heat. We've got some Sludge Wave next to the Duraludon action going on with the Gengar. So there's definitely there's a place for this mon on my team. And despite its limited options, I think it can be really good. And the Steel types were looking pretty limited at the moment on this board at this time. So Duraludon was a good option. And a fan favorite. Wanted to try it out with the new Eviolite. We'll see how good it really is. Okay. Next up, another returning member to the Togekiss. Man, I'm just drafting the same mons over and over again, right? Now, Quaquaval gets a lot of hate for some reason in this league. I don't know why, because I think this thing is really, really good. So, here's the thing about Quaquaval. In order to scale effectively on this thing with Aqua Step and Moxie, you need to let it live hits. So that's why I think this is like one of the most perfect screen abusing Pokemon I could think of. Because living that first hit to get an Aqua Step off gives you the speed advantage. And maybe even a KO, depending on with 120 attack stat with Water Stab. Depending on the mon, that could be a one-hit KO. Now, getting this thing a kill and a speed boost is basically a non-passive Dragon Dance. So you didn't waste your turn doing nothing. You dealt damage, picked up a KO, and got rewarded with a Dragon Dance. So that is such a powerful tool. And the way you allow him to get that off is by making him live the hit, like I said. So setting up a Reflect, a Light Screen, letting him click Aqua Step, getting those boosts up, turns this thing into an endgame threat that can just sweep through your whole team. Now, I used this Pokemon with screens when I had Klefki back in the season, a few seasons ago, I think 9, I want to say. Maybe it was 8. But regardless, Quaquaval is going to put in work for this team. Now, at this stage, I had a lot of ground weaknesses. I had Gouging Fire, Gengar, and Duraludon. That's 3 ground weaknesses and only 1 immunity in the flying type I have so far. So I definitely needed a way to punish these ground types because I don't want to see Terra Ground on every Pokemon every week. So Quaquaval gives me a really great way to punish those ground types with that powerful Aqua Jet, Aqua Step, Wave Crash. Got a lot of options in that sense. Now this thing also got some new tools. We got Triple Axle now. We got Upper Hand, which gives it some more interesting options. And brings back coaching. So this thing can help set up not only itself, but also, it can set up itself with its scaling and its Sword Dance. It could also help out an ally with Behind It Protects, right? I could Burning Bulwark and coaching my Gouging Fire. All of a sudden, I'm +1 attack and defense, and now I have a great turn on the next one around. So there's a lot of tools that this thing has available. I'm excited to put it back on the field and show people that this mon is not to be slept on, which I think it has so far. So, really happy to have Quaquaval back. Welcome, buddy. We missed you. All right, next up, we got Vikavolt. Now, Vikavolt fulfilled a couple niches for me at this stage in the draft for my team. I really needed a ground immunity. I know I just said that I have a really big ground weakness. I had that 1 ground immunity. I needed something else that can deter ground types. So, the Vikavolt, while it doesn't do a great job hitting ground types, it certainly does a great job resisting the hits with its ability Levitate. Now, in addition to providing that niche for me as a ground immunity, it also gives me a low speed tier. So far my Mons have been pretty middling to high speed with a lot of like 80s, 90s, 100s, 110s. So this was the first Mon I really got that is slow. And it's important to have slow Pokemon because if you don't, people are going to be clicking the Trick Room button on you every single week. So Vikavolt gives me a Pokemon that is just like it kind of like fits in like a puzzle piece with what I have so far. Because it gave me that ground immunity, it gives me that Trick Room threat, and it gives me just another strong attacker. This thing is 145 special attack, one of the highest in the whole format. And these bulk stats are decent enough to be a screen abuser. You don't need to put this thing in Trick Room. Put this thing next to a Light Screen or Reflect, it's living the hit, and it's hitting a fat, maybe a Bug Buzz, or maybe a Thunderbolt, and just killing something, right? Like this thing could be really, really strong and threatening. Usually when you draft Vikavolt, you want a strong Disquake option because it has that Levitate with a really, really powerful Discharge. I don't have a ground type yet, and I don't have one in the plans for the team, so I do have Gouging Fire available as a Terra Ground Earthquaker. So I do have a Disquake option that's pretty strong available to me if I want it with this pick. Supportive options here are interesting, but probably unlikely to see great use just given the fact that it's hard to get this thing to go first. You know, and if you do get it going first, you want to be using that 145 attack stat, not clicking Sticky Web or String Shot. But those are available to me as options if I do consider them, you know, important to a certain matchup. So it definitely does get some tools in that sense. Next up, another electric type, back to back. So Zebstrika was 2 points. I was looking at this thing like the whole draft, just thinking about how good value it was at 2 points. This thing kind of sucks. I get it. Like, I get why it's 2 points. But you know, it has 116 speed, and it has speed control options and supportive options in the Eerie Impulse, the Electro Web, the Thunder Wave, the Taunt, the Helping Hand, right? All that stuff is really, really nice to have on a draft league team. Now, this thing's going to end up being my highest speed value as well. So having a speed cap of 116 is certainly not bad, although in a format like this, there are going to be teams that have those 120s, 130s, like those really high speed numbers. This thing does give me that high speed tier that lets me put a Scarf on it and maybe outspeed those really high threats. Could outspeed like those booster energy Pokemon with like the 110, 111 speeds if I really want to with a Scarf. And I could just make sure I'm going first. I could get off that Electro Web, provide the team with support. And 100 base attack is nothing to, you know, write off about. This thing could definitely do damage. And it does get an additional stab option now in Supercell Slam, which is a physical electric move with 95 accuracy that does 100 damage. But if you miss, it's like high jump kick. You just like kind of kill yourself. So that I'm not quite sure yet if it's better than Wild Charge. I have to kind of like look into it. I feel like the risk of them protecting and then you missing makes Supercell Slam a little hard to use. But the fact that it's there at all, in addition to like high horsepower, Flame Charge, you could boost speed that way. Trailblaze, lower the target speed. It's got interesting stuff enough to where for 2 points, it's a good option. Also, great abilities. Like, you could Terra Water this thing, and you don't know if it's Lightning Rod or Sap Sipper. So that's kind of hard to read how to hit this thing super effectively. So it could certainly do that. Also, maybe a little bit of Lightning Rod discharge mode going on, huh? How about that? A little boosts going on, right? Boost up that special. Hey, that special attack ain't so bad, 80. It's usable. Hey, maybe we'll see this thing on the field a few times, Zebstrika. I like the zebra. Look at him. He's so cute. Okay, now I had a bunch of points left late in the draft. There was 2 options. I could have gone with like some more like 6 to 8 pointers to round out a really deep team, or I could spend and splurge to get one more top tier threat to pair with my team so far. And I opted for the latter. I went for the Glastrier, which was 15 points. And I'm really excited to use this thing. I think it's such a cool Pokemon. I always loved using the Calyrex Ice Rider in the restricted formats of Gen 8. And now Glastrier and Spectre make a return. I think they were here last season too, but you know, I don't think Glastrier has seen much use in these VGC draft leagues. And I think I kind of have the team to maybe get the most out of this Mon. So, first of all, incredible stats. 580 base total, and it's min-maxed. It's like a Trick Room min-maxed Mon. You got great bulk, 100, 130, 110 is so incredible. And then on top of that, you have one of the highest attack stats in the format with a 145, with access to stab ice moves, which are one of the best offensive types that you could have stab on. Now, the options for moves here are not ideal. I really wish it got like Icicle Spear or Ice Spinner, Icicle Crash, I hate using because I always miss it. But you do get Avalanche, so if you want to roll the dice on them hitting you that turn, you could do a really, really powerful ice attack. It gets close combat, high horsepower, and it gets Iron Defense Body Press. So the coverage is actually, it's decent. It's pretty good. You get setup options in Sword Dance. And most importantly to me, it gives us another low speed tier to really round out a really powerful Trick Room mode. I have 145 attacker and special attacker that love to operate under Trick Room. So teams are going to be a little more hesitant to click Trick Room against me if I have those mons, which I do now. Additionally, I can set Trick Room and abuse this amazing attack stat that I get on the Glastrier. Now, as I've said before, I think scaling with screens is very, very strong. And this thing gives me another scaling mon to put behind my Grimmsnarl priority Reflect and Light Screen. I've got Chilling Neigh, which is basically just Moxie. And this makes Glastrier a mon that you have to give attention to, because if I set this thing up under Trick Room, it can just start snowballing and taking KO after KO, boosting itself up, hitting an Icicle Crash, then hitting a close combat on the Dark type, you know what I mean? And then getting, now all of a sudden it's +2 and it's still going first, and you haven't been able to kill it because it's behind screens. Now I know that's a lot to say, you know, yeah, you have to set up screens and Trick Room to get it there. But with Terra, this thing, you could turn it away from its awful mono ice type. Just make it a water type. Make it a steel type. Make it a fire type. Just make it something where you're not being hit super effectively by like 6 different moves. And all of a sudden, those stats are just so threatening. It'll really appreciate using that Terra Blast as well. I think I'm going to be terroring this thing a decent bit, and I think I'm going to be using it outside Trick Room a decent bit as well, just as a sponge for damage behind screens to do really big damage in retaliation. Really excited to use Glastrier. I just think it's a really sick Pokemon too. Little Ice Horse going on. All right. Now, to wrap this up, we'll go very quickly through my 2 very low tier Pokemon. I've got Blissey, which is not coming to many matches. This is kind of like Blissey's obviously a very flawed Pokemon, right? And it requires the right situation to justify coming to a match. It would have to be a really specially offensive team that I feel like Blissey can get in and put in some work with its support moves. And now its support moves are pretty good. You know, Heal, Pulse, Life Dew, gets Gravity Sing, which could be kind of funny. It has a lot at its disposal. It's just hard to use it just because of that 10 defense stat. You know, and its 75 special attack is usable enough to where I was actually looking at the coverage options, and the coverage is great. Obviously, you're not going to be taking OHKOs with any of these moves, but 75 special attack, you know, Chilling Water or Ice Beam, it does something. It's not like it does no damage. So I could see it making an appearance every now and then, maybe once or twice over the season. Similarly with Swalot, right? So I only had 1 point left, so I was kind of limited. I really wanted Toucannon, but it got sniped in the last round, so I went with Swalot just because I thought it was one of the best ones left. And it's got some cool stuff. It's got Stuffed Cheeks, Gaster Acid, which are niche support moves that I've used with success in the past. So having that available on the team can be nice if the right situation applies. But you're not going to be seeing this Monomai hit the field most weeks for me. All right, so that's the team. We got 11 Pokemon now. So just to wrap up here, I want to spend a couple minutes briefly discussing the overall fit of these mons together, what the stat breakdown looks like, my type chart. So looking at my type chart, it's not bad at all. I've got a bit of a problematic ground weakness where I don't have any resistances, but I do have 2 immunities. However, I do have several offensive threats like the Quaquaval and the Glastrier to cover up my my ground weakness a little bit and prevent too many Terra grounds from hitting this team this season. Also, I really like that I have 9 unique types that I'm immune to on this team. So 9 immunities spread out between a lot of different Pokemon. I also have no mons on the team that have a 4x weakness, which I think is a first for me. So that's nice. So I can kind of play around without just something getting ridiculously OHKO'd from a 4x effective random Terra Blast, which is always fun. One problem I could see is that limited resistance to Fairy and Dragon could invite a lot of those Terra types. But luckily for me, I do have offensive tools to deal with those Terras if they do pop up. I have a lot of ways to hit Dragon. I have the Glastrier, I have the Duraludon, I have the Gouging Fire, and I can hit Fairies with the Duraludon and the Gengar. Right, so I do have ways to hit those types if I do see that they are becoming too much of an issue. But I have nice resistances to water, grass, ice, really just good offensive types. So liking how the type chart turned out, I think it's definitely good enough to not be like a major sour spot on this team. right? Let's take a look at the speed tiers. So I ended up with an interesting spread of speed tiers with a lot of middling Pokemon. And I've said it before, I think middling speed Pokemon that have good stats other than speed are the best abusers of both screen support and Tailwind, which I do have options to set up for them for this team. My high speed Mons, the 116 to 95 crew, all offer some sort of speed control, which I think is important. We get the fast Icy Wind, the fast Electro Web, the Tailwind and Trick Room on the Articuno, which can definitely help me go first and set the tone for the rest of my Mons to have that speed advantage. I don't think I'll be seeing too much Trick Room every week. It'll certainly come every now and then, but it's not the kind of team where, oh, I'm just clicking Trick Room. Thanks to those two powerful Trick Room threats, Glastrier and Vikavolt, love to operate under it. And I also have a couple priority tools that can help me get around having middling speed. With the Aqua Jet on the Quaquaval, the Sucker Punch on the Grimmsnarl, can certainly be powerful options that can help turn the tides in a speed matchup. Lastly, I ended up with a base stat total of 530 with really high base attacking numbers in 91 attack, 96 special attack, really good bulk numbers. This team has good Pokemon. And I think one of the things about Pokemon is that you end up having big numbers in a numbers game gives you an advantage. So hopefully having these big numbers and providing them with the right support through the screens and speed control will end up having me have some success this season. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited to use this team, especially these top 9 Mons a little bit. Get them thrown in there, get some matches going on. I've just found out the divisions. I think we're playing V the first week. So we'll definitely see you guys next week for a match commentary. And thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of the team. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys put out during Content Week as well. So thanks for watching, everybody, and peace.